Ever wonder who truly pulled the strings behind the thrones of the medieval world? Did the young impetuous kings and queens truly make all the calls, or was there an older, wiser hand guiding them through the shadows? From roughly the 5th century to the 15th century, power was often held by those with youthful vigor, but wisdom often resided in the graying temples of their most trusted confidants. Number 7. Wang Anshi, the architect of daring reforms. The court of Song, China, a land of intricate bureaucracy and ancient traditions, was no stranger to power struggles. Yet, in the 11th century, a scholar official named Wang Anshi stepped onto this complex stage, ready to challenge everything. Born in 1021, Wang Anshi was no young upstart when he rose to real power. He had spent decades in the civil service, a lifetime of observing the strengths and weaknesses of the vast empire. By the time Emperor Shenzong, a young and ambitious ruler, brought him to the capital of Kaifeng in the 1060s, Wang Anshi was already in his 40s, a seasoned veteran, his mind sharp and his resolve unyielding. He was known for his unkempt appearance, his disregard for luxury, and his fierce dedication to his intellectual pursuits, often ignoring court etiquette to focus on the problems he sought to solve. Emperor Shenzong, who ascended the throne in 1067, was a monarch burdened by the problems of his time. The Song dynasty, despite its cultural brilliance and economic prosperity, faced a number of deep-seated issues. The military was weak, relying heavily on expensive mercenary forces, while the northern borders were constantly threatened by nomadic tribes like the Tanguts and Khitans. The land system was unbalanced, with wealth accumulating in the hands of a few large landowners, leading to widespread poverty among peasants. The imperial treasury was often depleted, and the bureaucracy was bloated and inefficient, riddled with corruption. Many officials were content with the status quo, fearing that any significant change would disrupt their comfortable positions. Shenzong recognized the dire state of affairs and sought a radical solution. He found his man in Wang Anshi, who had already gained a reputation for his bold proposals and unwavering belief in strong centralized government intervention to improve the lives of the people and strengthen the state. Wang Anshi believed that good governance was not just about maintaining order, but actively shaping society for the better. He saw the traditional Confucian emphasis on minimal government intervention as a hindrance, arguing that the state had a moral obligation to ensure the welfare of its citizens and the prosperity of the empire. In 1069, Emperor Shenzong appointed Wang Anshi to the powerful position of chief counselor. This appointment sent shockwaves through the imperial court. Wang Anshi immediately began to implement his sweeping new policies. A series of reforms designed to tackle the empire's economic, military, and administrative woes. He aimed to create a robust state that could stand strong against external threats and uplift its own people. One of his most ambitious reforms was the Green Sprouts program. This initiative provided low-interest loans to farmers in spring, allowing them to purchase seeds and tools with repayment due at harvest time. The traditional system often forced farmers to borrow from usurious moneylenders, trapping them in cycles of debt. Wang Anshi's program was designed to break this cycle, giving farmers a chance to prosper and preventing them from falling into poverty. Records from the time suggest that, while some officials feared it would interfere with the natural order of the economy, Wang Anshi pushed it through, convinced of its benefit to the common people. He also tackled the land tax system with the land survey and equitable taxation program. This involved the comprehensive survey of all agricultural land to ensure that taxes were assessed fairly based on productivity and soil quality, rather than outdated records. This move was unpopular with wealthy landowners who had long enjoyed exemptions, or paid less than their share, but Wang Anshi believed it was essential for increasing imperial revenue and distributing the tax burden more justly across society. In military matters, Wang Anshi introduced the Borgia system, a local militia program. Instead of relying solely on professional armies, this system organized households into groups, with each group responsible for training and equipping local defense units. This not only aimed to strengthen the empire's defense capabilities, but also to reduce the high cost of maintaining a large standing army. He also reformed the imperial examinations, the gateway to civil service. He shifted the focus from rote memorization of Confucian classics to practical knowledge and policy analysis, believing that officials should be skilled in governance rather than just literary arts. This was a direct challenge to the established intellectual elite. Wang Anshi's reforms were met with fierce opposition. The conservative factions at court, led by powerful figures like Sima Guang, a renowned historian and former chief counselor, viewed his policies as radical and dangerous. They argued that the new policies disrupted ancient traditions, interfered with the natural order of society, and infringed upon individual liberties. Sima Guang, an elder statesman respected for his wisdom and integrity, believed that the state should not meddle so extensively in the economy, and that the changes were creating more problems than they solved. He pointed to instances where the Green Sprouts program was mismanaged by corrupt local officials, causing hardship rather than relief. The debates between Wang Anshi and his opponents were legendary, often involving heated exchanges in the emperor's presence. Wang Anshi, with his sharp intellect and unwavering conviction, usually had the emperor's ear, but the opposition was relentless. They used every available means to undermine his policies, from publishing critical essays to spreading rumors. Court documents reveal that the emperor himself sometimes wavered under the pressure, but Wang Anshi's persuasive arguments and the emperor's own desire for a stronger Song empire usually won out. Despite the fierce resistance, Wang Anshi pressed on, driven by his vision of a more prosperous and secure China. He understood that implementing such sweeping changes required not just policy decrees, but also a change in mindset, a challenge that many elderly advisors struggled with. When dealing with established Shidism, Shenzong, a young man who had the courage to back an experienced but controversial figure, trusted Wang Anshi implicitly. This trust allowed Wang Anshi to push through policies that might otherwise have been impossible. Their collaboration represented a unique alliance between youthful ambition and seasoned wisdom. However, the implementation of the new policies was not without its flaws. Corruption, a persistent problem in any large bureaucracy, sometimes plagued the programs, leading to unintended negative consequences. For some common people, local officials, eager to meet quotas or line their own pockets, occasionally misapplied the policies, turning what was intended as aid into burden. These failures fueled the arguments of Wang Anshi's opponents, who highlighted every misstep as proof of the policy's inherent flaws. In 1074, after 5 intense years of reform, Wang Anshi stepped down from his position partly due to the immense political pressure and the death of his mother. He returned briefly in 1075, but ultimately retired in 1076, leaving the court for good. Even in retirement, he continued to offer advice to the emperor through letters, and was often consulted on important matters. His departure left a void that no one else could fill with the same conviction and intellectual rigor. Wang Anshi's reforms were largely dismantled after Shenzong's death in 1085, as the conservative faction regained power under the regency of the Empress Dowager and the reappointed Sima Guang. Yet in Des Moines, he forced the Song dynasty to confront its deepest problems, and his policies, even those that failed, sparked crucial debates about the role of government and the nature of economic justice. Historians often discuss how his bold, direct approach, informed by decades of observation and experience, contrasted sharply with the more cautious, consensus-driven methods favored by many elder statesmen. Wang Anshi, the elderly advisor who dared to dream of a completely transformed state, remains a figure of immense importance, a testament to how a seasoned mind can spark revolutionary change. His life shows that wisdom, when combined with courage, can shake the foundations of an empire. Number 6. Bernard of Clairvaux, the conscience of Europe. In a time when the sword held immense power and spiritual authority, often played second fiddle to worldly concerns, a humble abbot emerged as one of the most influential figures in 12th century Europe. Bernard of Clairvaux, born in 1090, was not an official advisor in the traditional sense, holding no court title or formal government position. Yet his counsel was sought by kings, popes, and emperors, and his words carried the weight of spiritual and moral truth. By the time he entered his later years, his reputation for piety, intellect, and fiery eloquence had spread across the continent. He was a Cistercian monk, a reformer who advocated for a stricter, more ascetic form of monasticism. Believing that the church had grown too worldly and corrupt, Bernard's early life was marked by a fervent devotion. He entered the Cistercian order, a relatively new and austere monastic movement, in 1112, bringing with him his brothers and numerous relatives. He quickly rose through the ranks, and in 1115 he was sent to found a new monastery at Clairvaux, a remote valley in Champagne. Under his rigorous leadership, Clairvaux flourished, becoming a beacon of spiritual renewal and the mother house of countless new Cistercian foundations. His monks were known for their hard work, simple lives, and dedication to prayer, attracting men from all walks of life. Bernard's influence stemmed from his unparalleled spiritual authority. He was revered as a living saint, a man whose piety was beyond question, whose intellect was formidable, and whose oratory could move vast crowds. Kings like Louis VI and Louis VII of France, Emperor Lothair II of the Holy Roman Empire, and numerous other powerful figures looked to him not for political maneuvering, but for moral guidance. He was the spiritual arbiter of his age, a man who spoke truth to power without fear. His age and experience by the 1140s lent further gravity to his pronouncements. He was seen as a sage, a direct channel to divine wisdom. One of his most significant interventions came during the Papal Schism of 1130. After the death of Pope Honorius II, two rival popes were elected, Innocent II and Anacletus II. Europe was divided, and the legitimacy of the Church itself was at stake. Bernard threw his immense weight behind Innocent II, traveling across France, Germany, and Italy, preaching tirelessly, debating opponents, and swaying public opinion. He convinced King Louis VI, King Henry I of England, and Emperor Lothair II directly ending the schism. His moral authority was so great that even without an army he could unite kingdoms behind a single pontiff. His letters from this period show a relentless, almost prophetic zeal. Perhaps his most dramatic and far-reaching influence was his role in promoting the Second Crusade. In the mid-1140s, news reached Europe that the Crusader state of Edessa had fallen to Muslim forces. Pope Eugenius III, a former Cistercian monk and a student of Bernard's, appealed to Bernard to preach a new crusade. Despite his advancing age and frail health, Bernard accepted the challenge. He traveled through France and Germany, delivering passionate and electrifying sermons that stirred the hearts of thousands. At Vézelay in 1146, before a massive crowd, his words moved King Louis VII of France and Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine to take the cross. Later in Germany, he convinced the Holy Roman Emperor Conrad III to join the crusade, a feat that required overcoming deep-seated German reluctance. Bernard's preaching was so powerful that it was said he emptied cities and towns, leaving behind only women and children, as men flocked to join the holy war. He painted vivid pictures of spiritual rewards and the shame of inaction, using his considerable rhetorical skills to ignite a fervor that swept through Europe. He believed that the crusade was a divine undertaking, essential for the salvation of souls and the protection of the Holy Land. He also used his influence to quell anti-Jewish violence that erupted in the wake of the crusade, preaching, condemning such acts as unchristian and protecting Jewish communities. Where he could, however, the Second Crusade ultimately ended in disaster. The European army suffered heavy losses, achieved little, and many blamed Bernard for its failure. He faced criticism and disillusionment, with some accusing him of being a false prophet. Bernard, in turn, attributed the failure to the sins of the Crusaders themselves, arguing that God had punished them for their moral failings. The weight of this failure undoubtedly bore heavily on him in his later years. Beyond crusades and schisms, Bernard was a prolific writer, producing hundreds of letters, sermons, and theological treatises. His writings on mysticism and the love of God continued to be studied and admired. He was also a sharp critic of abuses within the Church, condemning corruption, excessive wealth, and clerical immorality. He fearlessly challenged powerful bishops and even popes when he believed they strayed from the true path of Christ. His deep understanding of theology and his rigorous intellectual discipline allowed him to articulate commerce, Arbian with clarity and persuasive power, making his advice truly école. Bernard's counsel was not always political, but it always touched upon the moral and spiritual dimensions of governance. He reminded rulers that their authority ultimately came from God, and that they were responsible for the spiritual well-being of their subjects. He intervened in dynastic disputes, advised on matters of justice, and championed the poor and oppressed. His wisdom was seen as divinely inspired, and his opinions carried extraordinary weight in a deeply religious age. Bernard of Clairvaux died in 1153, at the age of 63. Exhausted by his tireless work and spiritual struggles, he was canonized as a saint just 21 years later, a testament to his immediate and enduring impact. His life illustrates how an elderly advisor, even without a formal position, can shape the destiny of an entire continent through sheer moral force, intellectual prowess, and an unwavering commitment to their beliefs. He showed that true influence can come from spiritual wisdom and an ability to articulate a compelling moral vision, guiding rulers not through political calculation but through the profound weight of conscience. Number 5. Pope Sylvester II, the Scholar Pope. In the turbulent world of 10th century Europe, where the remnants of the Carolingian Empire struggled to find stability, a figure of extraordinary intellect and vision emerged. Gerbert of Aurillac, born around 946 CE in a humble family in Auvergne, France, would rise to become Pope Sylvester II, one of the most laissez-faire to the young and ambitious Emperor Otto III. By the time Gerbert gained the emperor's full trust and became pope, he was already in his mid-50s, a time when most men were considered elderly, particularly given the shorter lifespans of the era. His age, however, only added to his mystique and the perception of his profound wisdom. Gerbert's early life was dedicated to learning. He received an excellent education at the monastery of Aurillac, mastering the traditional monastic curriculum. But his true passion lay in the sciences and mathematics, subjects largely neglected in Western Europe at the time. He traveled to Spain, a center of learning in the Islamic world, where he studied at the vibrant schools of Catalonia, immersing himself in Arabic and Greek text. There he learned about the Hindu-Arabic numeral system, the astrolabe, and other advanced scientific instruments, knowledge that was far ahead of his contemporaries in the West. He was even credited with introducing the abacus to Europe, a revolutionary tool for calculation. His intellectual brilliance quickly drew the attention of powerful figures. He became a teacher at the Cathedral School of Rheims, transforming it into a leading center of scholarship. His students came from across Europe, eager to learn from a master who understood logic, rhetoric, arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and music like no other. He later became the abbot of Bolbio, and then the Archbishop of Reims, navigating complex political currents and personal rivalries throughout his rise. It was his encounter with the young Otto III that truly cemented Gerbert's place in history. Otto III, born in 980, ascended the throne of the Holy Roman Empire. At the tender age of 3, as he grew, he developed a fascination with the classical Roman Empire and a dream of restoring its glory, creating a universal Christian empire with himself at its head. He needed a mentor, a guide who possessed both the intellect and the vision to help him achieve his ambitious goals. Otto found this in Gerbert. The young emperor, captivated by Gerbert's vast knowledge and sharp mind, formed an incredibly close bond with his elder tutor. Otto called Gerbert his master and treated him with the utmost respect and affection. Gerbert's advice to Otto III went beyond mere scholarly instruction. He became the emperor's chief political and intellectual confidant. He encouraged Otto's dream of a Roman renewal, believing that a strong, unified Christian empire was essential for the stability and spiritual well-being of Europe. He was instrumental in shaping Otto's ideology, known as the Renovatio Imperii Romanorum, the renewal of the Roman Empire. Gerbert's counsel was not simply about tactics, but about grand strategy, about the very purpose and potential of the empire. He saw a chance to unite spiritual and temporal power for the common good. In 998, Otto III, who had immense respect for Gerbert's wisdom and learning, appointed him Archbishop of Ravenna. The following year, in 999, Otto ensured Gerbert's election as Pope, a truly unprecedented move for a scholar of his background. Gerbert took the name Sylvester II, deliberately choosing a name reminiscent of Pope Sylvester I, who had advised Emperor Constantine the Great, signaling the emperor's and his own ambition to usher in a new golden age. As Pope Sylvester II continued to advise Otto III, forming a unique partnership between an emperor and a pontiff, they worked hand in hand to reform the church, suppress simony, the selling of church offices, and promote education. Sylvester II used his vast knowledge to address theological disputes, reorganize dioceses, and strengthen the moral authority of the papacy. He was a champion of Latin Christendom, yet he also understood the importance of knowledge from other cultures, even those considered rivals. His wisdom often came from his ability to synthesize diverse fields of knowledge. Their shared vision for the empire, however, faced considerable opposition from the Roman nobility, who resented the emperor's foreign interference and the Pope's reformist agenda. The Roman patricians and powerful local families viewed Otto and Sylvester's attempts to centralize power and impose order as a direct threat to their own long-established privileges. They saw Otto's frequent presence in Rome as an intrusion, and Sylvester's reforms as an assault on their traditional sources of income and influence. In 1001, a revolt erupted in Rome. The Roman populace, incited by the local nobility, turned against Otto III and Sylvester II. The emperor and the pope were forced to flee the city, seeking refuge in the countryside. This uprising was a devastating blow to their ambitious plans. It highlighted the deep-seated resistance to their vision of a renewed Roman Empire and the fragility of their power in the face of local vested interests. Sylvester II, the elder statesman who had guided the young emperor, witnessed their shared dream begin to unravel. Otto III, disheartened by the Roman rebellion and the crumbling of his imperial dreams, fell ill and died in January 1002 at the young age of 21. His death was a catastrophic blow to Sylvester II, who had lost his most dedicated patron and intellectual companion. The scholar pope, now isolated and with his reform efforts stalled, returned to Rome, but died a little over a year later, in May 1003. Despite the tragic end to their grand imperial project, the legacy of Pope Sylvester II is profound. He was a bridge between the intellectual traditions of the Islamic world and Latin Europe, introducing crucial scientific and mathematical knowledge that laid the groundwork for future intellectual developments. His life spent in the pursuit and dissemination of knowledge demonstrates the immense power of intellect and wisdom in guiding rulers. He showed how an elderly advisor, through sheer brain power and a comprehensive understanding of the world, could inspire a young ruler with a vision of global transformation, even if that vision was ultimately challenged. He was a shining example of how knowledge could be power shaping the destiny of both empires and the church. Number 4. Maimonides the healer and philosopher guide. In the 12th century, amidst the fervor of the Crusades and the flourishing intellectual centers of the Islamic world, a man of extraordinary intellect served as both a physician and a philosophical guide to some of the most powerful rulers of his age. Moses ben Maimon, known to the world as Maimonides, was born in Cordoba, Spain in 1138, a time when Christian reconquest was pushing south. His family, prominent in the Jewish community, was forced to flee due to religious persecution, embarking on a long and arduous journey across North Africa and the Middle East. By the time Maimonides settled in Cairo and began serving as a physician to the Ayyubid court, he was already in his 40s, a seasoned scholar and a medical authority. Study and deep contemplation. He spent his elder years at the heart of power, directly influencing the Sultan. Maimonides was not just a physician. He was a polymath, a master of Jewish law, philosophy, astronomy, and medicine. His encyclopedic knowledge and systematic approach to thought were legendary. He wrote extensively in Arabic, the common language of scholarship in the region, as well as in Hebrew. His magnum opus in Jewish law, the Mishneh Torah, systematized the entire body of Jewish religious law, a monumental undertaking that transformed Jewish study. His philosophical masterpiece, The Guide for the Perplexed, attempted to reconcile Aristotelian philosophy with Jewish theology, a daring intellectual endeavor that challenged traditional interpretations. This blend of practical and theoretical knowledge made him an invaluable advisor. Maimonides' path to influence began through his medical expertise. He became the court physician to the Grand Vizier Al-Qudi al-Fadil, and shortly thereafter to the legendary Sultan Saladin himself, the formidable Muslim leader who recaptured Jerusalem from the Crusaders. Saladin was a ruler constantly engaged in warfare and diplomacy, leading vast armies and managing a diverse empire. He needed reliable and wise counsel, not just on military matters, but also on the well-being of his court and family. Maimonides, with his calm demeanor, sharp diagnostic skills, and deep knowledge of health, quickly earned Saladin's trust. As Saladin's physician, Maimonides was not merely a healer of bodies, but also a counselor for the mind. He would spend his days treating the Sultan and his family as well as high-ranking officials. His medical writings, such as Treatise on Asthma and Regimen of Health, provided practical advice on diet, exercise, and mental well-being, emphasizing a holistic approach to health. These texts were revolutionary, for their time blending Greek, Islamic, and Jewish medical traditions. He was revered, not just for his medical skill, but for his intellectual integrity and his ability to see connections between different fields of knowledge. Beyond his medical duties, Maimonides often served as a philosophical advisor, engaging in deep intellectual discussions with the Sultan and his inner circle. While direct transcripts of their conversations are rare, it is clear from historical accounts that Saladin and later his son Al-Afdal and other successors held Maimonides in high regard for his wisdom and ethical insights. Maimonides' presence in the court meant that a voice of reason, intellectual rigor, and ethical consistency was consistently present at the highest levels of power. He believed that the pursuit of knowledge and ethical conduct were intertwined, a message he subtly conveyed through his interactions. His most direct influence as an advisor often came through his role as a spiritual leader of the Egyptian Jewish community. While tending to the Sultan, he was also the Negid, the spiritual head of the Jewish community, responsible for its welfare and for adjudicating legal matters. This dual role gave him a unique perspective on the inner workings of the empire and the challenges faced by its diverse populations. He used his position to advocate for justice and protect the rights of his community within the Muslim-ruled lands, demonstrating how an elderly advisor could serve multiple constituencies. Maimonides' wisdom extended to matters of public health and hygiene, which were crucial for the stability of a large urban center like Cairo. He likely advised the Sultan on measures to prevent epidemics and improve sanitation. Drawing on his extensive medical knowledge, his guidance would have been vital in maintaining the health of the court and the broader population, particularly in an era prone to devastating outbreaks of disease. Records indicate that he was actively involved in court life and its daily operations, showing his comprehensive engagement with the empire's affairs. His philosophical insights, disseminated through his writings and conversations, influenced the intellectual climate of the court. He emphasized the importance of reason, the pursuit of truth, and the harmonious coexistence of different faiths. While Saladin was a military leader, he was also a patron of scholars and a man who appreciated intellectual depth. Maimonides, with his profound understanding of the human condition and his ability to synthesize complex ideas, provided a unique perspective that balanced the harsh realities of warfare with the ideals of justice and compassion. Maimonides continued to serve the Ayyubid sultans until his death in 1204, at the age of 66. His final years were marked by immense scholarly output and unwavering dedication to his patients and his community. Despite his demanding schedule as court physician, he continued to write, correspond with scholars across the globe, and lead the Jewish community. His reputation as a wise and ethical figure only grew with age, making him a revered figure even among non-Jews. The influence of Maimonides goes far beyond his direct medical care. He embodied the ideal of the philosopher king's guide, a man who possessed both practical skills and profound theoretical wisdom. He showed how an elderly advisor, even from a minority faith, could earn the respect and trust of powerful rulers through sheer competence, integrity, and an unyielding commitment to truth. His legacy demonstrates that influence comes not just from political maneuvering, but from intellectual brilliance and a profound understanding of human nature, a timeless quality that transcends cultural and religious divides. Number 3. Nizam al-Mulk, the Grand Vizier who built an empire. In the 11th century, the Seljuk Empire, a vast and rapidly expanding Turkic realm, stretched from Central Asia to Anatolia, encompassing Persia, Mesopotamia, and Syria. Such a colossal domain demanded a statesman of unparalleled skill and vision to manage its complex administration and diverse populations. That man was Abu Ali Hathan ibn Ali Tusi, better known as Nizam al-Mulk, whose name itself means Order of the Realm. Born in 1018 in a small town in Persia, Nizam al-Mulk was already in his early 40s when he entered the service of the Seljuk Turks, a period when he began to truly shape the empire's destiny. For over 3 decades, he served as the Grand Vizier, the chief minister to 2 of the most powerful Seljuk sultans, Alp Arslan and his son Malik Shah. The first, by the time of his peak influence, he was well into his later years, at a repository of experience and a master of statecraft. Nizam al-Mulk's early career provided him with invaluable experience in administration and governance. He worked his way up through the ranks, first serving the Ghaznavids, a rival Turkic dynasty, and then joining the Seljuks, who were rapidly consolidating their power. His keen intelligence, organizational abilities, and shrewd political acumen quickly became apparent. He distinguished himself through his mastery of Persian bureaucratic traditions, which were far more sophisticated than the relatively simple tribal structures of the early Seljuks. He understood that to build a lasting empire, the Seljuks needed more than military might. They needed effective governance, a functioning economy, and a stable social order. When Alp Arslan became sultan in 1063, he appointed Nizam al-Mulk as his vizier. This marked the beginning of one of the most successful partnerships in medieval Islamic history. Nizam al-Mulk's advice to Alp Arslan focused on consolidating power, establishing a stable administration, and promoting Sunni Islam as the unifying force of the empire. He was the architect of the Seljuk state, transforming a loose confederation of tribes into a highly centralized and efficient empire. He understood that the youthful energy of the Sultan needed the seasoned wisdom of an experienced administrator. One of Nizam al-Mulk's most enduring legacies was the establishment of the Nizamiyya madrasas, a network of state-funded institutions of higher learning. These colleges, built in major cities across the empire, including Baghdad, Nishapur, Isfahan, and Damascus, were designed to train future administrators, judges, and religious scholars loyal to the Seljuk state and to Orthodox Sunni. He understood that an empire needed not only soldiers, but also educated civil servants and a unified religious ideology to maintain its cohesion. These madrasas were revolutionary, providing standardized curricula, salaries for teachers. They served as intellectual powerhouses, strengthening the empire's ideological foundations and ensuring a steady supply of trained personnel for its vast bureaucracy. Nizam al-Mulk also reformed the Ikuta system, a form of land grant. While the Ikuta system had existed before him, he streamlined and regulated it. He ensured that military commanders were granted revenues from specific lands in exchange for their service, rather than outright ownership of the land. This helped prevent the fragmentation of the empire and ensured that land remained ultimately under the Sultan's control, while still providing an incentive for military service. His administrative reforms also included a comprehensive tax system, efficient postal services, and improved infrastructure, all aimed at strengthening the central government and fostering economic prosperity. His political advice to the sultans was always pragmatic and focused on the long-term stability of the empire. He advocated for a strong central authority capable of suppressing internal revolts and external threats. He played a crucial role in managing the complex relationships between the Turkic military elite and the Persian bureaucracy, skillfully balancing their interests to prevent internal strife. His insights into human nature and political dynamics, honed over decades in public service, allowed him to navigate treacherous court politics with remarkable success. Nizam al-Mulk served Sultan Alp Arslan until the Sultan's death in 1072. He then transitioned to serving Alp Arslan's young son, Malik Shah I, who was only a teenager when he ascended the throne. Nizam al-Mulk continued to wield immense power and influence during Malik Shah's reign, which is often considered the golden age of the Seljuk Empire. He effectively ruled the empire in Malik Shah's name, managing its vast bureaucracy, directing its foreign policy, and endifying its cultural and intellectual flourishing. The Sultan, though young, trusted his experienced vizier implicitly, relying on his judgment in almost all matters of state. During his tenure, Nizam al-Mulk faced numerous challenges, including the rise of the radical Ismaili assassins, a secretive sect that posed a constant threat to the Sunni establishment. He launched military campaigns against their strongholds and actively sought to counter their ideological influence. He also dealt with rebellious, regional governors and powerful tribal leaders, using a combination of diplomacy, coercion, and strategic military action to maintain order. Nizam al-Mulk meticulously documented his philosophy of governance in his influential work, the Siyasat-Name, Book of Government. Written for Malik Shah, this book is a comprehensive guide to statecraft, offering advice on everything from royal duties and justice to spy networks and court etiquette. It reflects his vast experience and his deeply held convictions about the proper conduct of a ruler and the structure of a stable state. This book stands as a testament to his comprehensive vision and the wisdom he sought to impart to future generations of rulers. However, Nizam al-Mulk's long tenure and immense power eventually led to friction. As Malik Shah grew older, he reportedly grew increasingly resentful of his vizier's overwhelming influence. The Sultan's wife, Turkin Khatun, also sought to promote her own son to the succession, clashing with Nizam al-Mulk's support for another candidate. This internal court intrigue, combined with the escalating threat from the assassins, created a dangerous environment. In 1092, Nizam al-Mulk, then 74 years old, was assassinated. The exact circumstances of his death remain debated, with some sources attributing it to the assassins, and others suggesting it was at the instigation of Malik Shah or his powerful wife. His death marked the beginning of the end of the Seljuk Golden Age. Malik Shah himself died a month later, leading to a period of instability and civil war within the empire. Nizam al-Mulk remains one of the most significant figures in medieval Islamic history. His wisdom, administrative genius, and commitment to institutional building laid the foundations for the Seljuk Empire's prosperity and stability. He showed how an elderly advisor, through a lifetime of dedication to statecraft and a profound understanding of bureaucratic systems, could not only guide but effectively build a vast and lasting empire, leaving behind an enduring legacy of order and learning. Number 2. Abbot Suger, the kingmaker and builder. The 12th century, in France, was a period of transition, as the Capetian kings sought to consolidate their power over rebellious feudal lords, and establish a strong central monarchy. At the heart of this transformation stood Abbot Suger, born in 1081, a statesman, diplomat, and visionary who served as the chief advisor to two French kings, Louis VI and Louis VII. By the time he became the trusted confidant of Louis VI, he was already in his 30s, but his most profound influence, particularly during the Second Crusade, came in his later years when he became regent for the young Louis VII. He was a man whose wisdom, sharpened by decades of political maneuvering and administrative work, was instrumental in laying the foundations of the French monarchy. Suger's life began modestly. He was offered to the Benedictine monastery of Saint-Denis as an oblate at a young age, around 10 years old. There, he received an excellent education and befriended the young Louis VI, who was also educated at the abbey. This early connection would prove to be a lifelong bond of trust and mutual respect. Suger quickly showed a remarkable aptitude for administration and diplomacy. He rose through the monastic ranks, holding various administrative positions that gave him deep insights into the workings of land finances and people. In 1122, he was elected abbot of Saint-Denis, one of the wealthiest and most prestigious abbeys in France, giving him a powerful platform for influence. As Abbot Suger became a key advisor to King Louis VI, who is known as the Fat, due to his robust physique, but also for his shrewd political sense and his determination to assert royal authority. Suger helped Louis VI in his tireless efforts to subdue the unruly barons in the Île-de-France, the royal domain, and to establish law and order. Suger was often dispatched on diplomatic missions. Representing the king at papal councils and imperial courts, he advised on matters of finance, military strategy, and royal administration. Using his detailed knowledge of the feudal system and his keen understanding of political dynamics, he was a pragmatic and realistic advisor, urging caution and strategic alliances rather than reckless confrontation. Suger's most significant role as an elderly advisor came during the reign of Louis VII, Louis VI's son. When Louis VI died in 1137, Louis VII, still young and impulsive, ascended the throne. Suger continued to serve as his principal advisor, acting almost as a father figure and a steadying hand. He had personally overseen Louis VII's education and understood his character well. Suger urged moderation and peace, particularly in the king's early years, when Louis VII's impetuous decisions often led to conflict. A crucial moment came when Louis VII decided to lead the Second Crusade. Suger, nearing 60 years old and wary of the financial and logistical risks of such a massive undertaking, initially advised against. He understood the immense strain it would place on the already fragile French treasury and the dangers of leaving the kingdom without its monarch. He argued that the king's primary duty was to his kingdom and its subjects, not to foreign military ventures. However, Louis VII, deeply influenced by the Matic preaching of Bernard of Clairvaux, was determined to go. Once the decision was made, Suger, despite his reservations, threw himself into preparing the kingdom for the king's absence. He was appointed regent, entrusted with the complete governance of France during Louis VII's 2-year absence on the crusade. This was an extraordinary responsibility for an abbot, especially one in his advanced years. As regent, Suger managed the kingdom with remarkable skill and efficiency. He maintained peace and order, suppressed baronial revolts, managed the royal finances, and protected the royal domain. While the Second Crusade itself was a dismal failure in the Holy Land, Suger's regency ensured that the French kingdom remained stable and secure, a testament to his exceptional administrative abilities and political wisdom. He sent regular updates to the king, keeping him informed of affairs at home and urging his swift return. His success as regent stood in stark contrast to the Crusades' misfortunes, cementing his reputation as an indispensable statesman. Upon Louis VII's return, dispirited and defeated, Suger advised him against leading another crusade. He continued to be a voice of wisdom and stability, urging the king to focus on strengthening the monarchy within France. Suger was also a visionary builder. He oversaw the magnificent rebuilding of the Abbey of Saint-Denis, transforming it into a masterpiece of early Gothic architecture. He believed that the beauty of the Abbey, as the burial place of French kings, would reflect the glory of the monarchy and the majesty of God. His architectural innovations, such as the use of ribbed vaults and large stained glass windows, created a new aesthetic that spread throughout Europe. Suger's advice was often direct and practical. He understood the power of symbols and propaganda, using the Abbey of Saint-Denis as a focal point for royal legitimacy. He also emphasized the importance of good governance, encouraging the king to dispense justice fairly and to protect the common people from oppressive lords. His wisdom was rooted in a deep understanding of both monastic principles and the harsh realities of feudal politics. He showed how an elderly advisor, through a combination of administrative genius, diplomatic skill, and unwavering loyalty, could guide a young and sometimes impetuous ruler through the tumultuous waters of medieval statecraft. Abbot Suger died in 1151 at the age of 70, leaving behind a profound legacy. He was instrumental in transforming the Capetian monarchy from a weak regional power into a formidable force in Europe. His administrative reforms, his role in securing the kingdom during the Second Crusade, and his contributions to Gothic architecture all bear witness to his enduring influence. He demonstrated that true power often resided not in a crown, but in the seasoned wisdom and dedicated service of a trusted advisor, a man who saw the long game and patiently laid the groundwork for a stronger, more unified nation. Number 1. Alcuin of York, the architect of the Carolingian Renaissance. In the late 8th century, as Europe emerged from the chaos following the collapse of the Roman Empire, a towering figure known as Charlemagne set about building a new empire, one that stretched across much of Western Europe. To accomplish his monumental task, he needed more than just military might. He needed wisdom, education, and cultural renewal. He found these qualities in Alcuin of York, an Anglo-Saxon scholar born around 735 in Northumbria, England. By the time Charlemagne invited Alcuin to his court in the 780s, Alcuin was in his 40s, already a renowned teacher and scholar, a man whose vast knowledge and deep understanding of classical and Christian learning would prove indispensable to the young emperor. He would spend his elder years as Charlemagne's closest intellectual confidant, shaping the very fabric of his empire. Alcuin's early life was spent in the vibrant intellectual environment of York, one of the few remaining centers of learning in Western Europe during the so-called Dark Ages. He was educated at the Cathedral School of York, a renowned institution with an impressive library. He became a master of the liberal arts, skilled in grammar, rhetoric, and dialectic, as well as arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and music. He also possessed a profound knowledge of the Bible, the Church Fathers, and classical Latin authors. His reputation as a scholar and a teacher had spread across the continent even before Charlemagne sent for him. Charlemagne, a powerful warrior and a visionary ruler, recognized that his sprawling empire, largely illiterate and lacking a unified culture, needed an intellectual foundation to truly thrive. He aimed to revive learning, improve literacy, and standardize religious practices. He sought out the best minds in Europe to help him achieve this ambitious goal, and Alcuin was precisely the man he needed. In 782, Charlemagne invited Alcuin to his palace at Aachen, and Alcuin readily accepted, drawn by the prospect of contributing to such a grand project. Alcuin became the head of the palace school, a center of learning at Charlemagne's court. His role was far more than that of a mere tutor. He became Charlemagne's chief intellectual advisor, his trusted confidant on matters of education, theology, and even imperial policy. He established a rigorous curriculum for the school teaching, Charlemagne's children, the young nobles, and even the emperor himself. He introduced the 7 liberal arts as the basis of education and emphasized the importance of correct Latin usage, a crucial step for a unified administration and church. Alcuin's influence extended beyond the palace walls. He championed the standardization of handwriting, leading to the development of the Carolingian minuscule, a clear and legible script that replaced the diverse and often illegible scripts of the earlier period. This reform was revolutionary, making it easier to copy and read texts, thereby facilitating the spread of knowledge across the empire. He also oversaw the meticulous copying and correction of ancient manuscripts, saving countless classical and early Christian texts from oblivion. This careful preservation of knowledge was a cornerstone of the Carolingian Renaissance. As Charlemagne's chief theological advisor, Alcuin played a crucial role in shaping the emperor's religious policies. He advised on matters of doctrine, liturgy, and the interpretation of Scripture. He was instrumental in defending the orthodox position against heresies and in promoting a unified Christian identity throughout the empire. He engaged in theological debates, corresponded with bishops and abbots across Europe, and helped draft important capitularies, royal decrees, that addressed religious and moral issues. His wise counsel helped Charlemagne navigate complex theological disputes and establish a uniform religious practice, which was essential for a cohesive empire. Alcuin's relationship with Charlemagne was one of deep mutual respect and intellectual camaraderie. Charlemagne, though a powerful ruler, was humble enough to learn from his elder advisor. He frequently engaged Alcuin in spirited discussions on philosophy, theology, and politics, often seeking his input before making major decisions. Records from the time portray Alcuin as a patient and encouraging teacher, always ready to explain complex concepts in simple terms. For the emperor, their partnership was a testament to the power of intellectual collaboration between a visionary ruler and a wise scholar. Alcuin also played a significant role in Charlemagne's imperial ambitions. He helped articulate the ideological basis for Charlemagne's empire, emphasizing its Christian mission and its role as the successor to Rome. He understood the symbolic power of a unified empire and helped to shape the narrative that would elevate Charlemagne to imperial status. While Charlemagne's coronation as emperor in 800 CE was a complex event with many players, Alcuin's intellectual groundwork certainly contributed to the perception of Charlemagne as a legitimate successor to the Roman emperors. In 796, Alcuin, now in his 60s, was granted the wealthy and prestigious abbey of St. Martin of Tours. Even from Tours, he continued to advise Charlemagne through an extensive correspondence, offering counsel on theological matters, education, and administrative issues. He transformed the abbey into a thriving scriptorium, a center for copying and preserving manuscripts, ensuring that the intellectual revival he had championed would continue. His wisdom remained highly sought after, even as his physical presence at court diminished. He was a symbol of intellectual authority across the empire. Alcuin passed away in 804 at the age of 69. Having devoted over 2 decades of his life to Charlemagne's empire, his influence was immense and long-lasting. The educational reforms he instituted laid the groundwork for medieval scholasticism and the development of European universities. The preservation and copying of classical texts ensured that the knowledge of antiquity was not lost, providing a crucial foundation for future intellectual development. The Carolingian Renaissance, a period of renewed interest in learning, art, and culture, owes a massive debt to Alcuin's tireless efforts and profound wisdom. Alcuin of York showed how an elderly advisor, armed with nothing but intellect and a passion for learning, could fundamentally transform an entire empire. He was the quiet force behind Charlemagne's cultural and educational revolution, proving that true power lies not just in wielding a sword, but in shaping minds, preserving knowledge, and building the intellectual foundations for a lasting civilization. His life is a testament to the enduring power of wisdom and the quiet influence of a scholar in shaping the destiny of a continent.